Then do you guys want to say hi to YouTube? Hey YouTube, what's up? How you doing? I hope you guys are doing well. Welcome back to another chapter analysis. I never thought that we would be at the point where we would be doing like a lot of chapter analysis as we go through. I'm surprised that the ReZero one isn't like people from ReZero or other animes aren't coming in here and being like, let's do this random chapter from this anime or whatnot, because it'd be fun. It'd be fine. But with that being said, today we're doing Sending Rudius with Ghislaine. It's a small little chapter type thing. I don't know how else to say it other than like we've done various of these in the past. No, I have not read the light novel. I guess I can't really say that when I'm reading the special chapters. All of these chapters have been curated by Zictor and by the community here. I have not really had an opportunity to go through them unless it's here voted on, here live on stream and with the suggestions of you guys on YouTube. We have quite a bit. Guys, can't appreciate all of you guys enough for going ahead and being open to giving suggestions as to what to go ahead and read. Watch, or understand, you know, the whole aspect like that. With that being said, yeah, why don't we go and just jump into it? I don't know what else to say. Hold on. There we go. All right. Damn, that was close. My son lays unconscious on the ground before my filthy mud-caked shoes. Since this would be my last day teaching him the sword, I decided to put the fear of God in him before I knocked him out. But the kid actually snapped off a bunch of spells the instant I made my move. It wasn't just a bunch of panicked attacks either. He was mainly trying to slow me down, and every single time he cast something, it was a different spell. That's my son for you, alright? Kid's got a knack for battle. Sure, the fight had only lasted a few seconds, but it was a complete surprise attack, and I still needed three steps to take him down. The last one had been especially dangerous. If I'd hesitated even slightly, he would have snared both of my legs and taken me out in no time. 3 steps was just too many when you're fighting a magician. If he'd been in a group, as one of his allies would have stepped in to protect him by the time I'd taken my second stride, and if there'd been just a bit more distance between us, I might have needed 4 steps. For all intents and purposes. Yeah, for all intents and purposes, the kid got the best of me. You could probably toss him into a party of adventurers right now. He'd more than pull his own weight in a labyrinth. Aww. Guess you'd expect no less from the wow, my language today. Prodigy who gave a water saint tier magician an inferiority complex. The boy was downright terrifying, but for some reason, that made me happy. Up until now, I'd been jealous of anyone more talented than me. But where my son was concerned, all I felt was pride. Okay, this isn't the time for me to be talking to myself. Let's get this done before Laws makes it over here. Quickly proceeded to tie up my son. The carriage had arrived by the time I finished, so I picked him up and prepared to toss him into it. Of course, Laws picked that moment to show up with Sylphia in tow. Rudy? Seeing her playmate bound hand and foot, the girl immediately fired off an intermediate tier offensive spell at me without so much of as an incantation. I warded it off easily enough, but on top of the silent spell casting, the attack power and speed were both impressive. She could easily have killed a normal person. Damn it, Rudius! Don't go teaching her that crap! Bro, Rudius is out here pumping out like, you know, some like A+ level tier like threats and stuff. After handing Ghislaine my letter, I unceremoniously dumped Rudius in the carriage and let the coachman know he was good to go. Glancing over, I saw Laws crouched next to Sylphie, speaking to her firmly but quietly. Yeah, that's the way. It's a parent's job to teach their kids what's what. Laws had allowed Rudy to take over many of his duties, but now he'd get the chance to reclaim his rightful role. Exhaling quietly, I watched a little family conference from a distance. After a moment, the wind carried Sophie's voice over to me. No, I'll get strong enough to help Rudy. That girl really adores you, that girl really adores you, son of mine. At this point, 2 wives emerged from the house, and I told them to stay inside if they wanted to watch, mostly for their own safety. But I suppose they wanted to send the boy off at least. Oh, my sweet little Rudy leaving me. I have thoughts. We'll get to this. Be brave, madam. This is a trial we must endure. I know, Lydia. I know. Oh, Rudius. My son is riding off. He's he's left his poor mother all alone. Woe is me. You're not alone, madam. He's not your only child. Yeah, you're right, of course. He has 2 little sisters now. 2, oh, madam, of course, Lilia, I'll love your child as much as mine, as much as I love you. Oh, madam, I feel just the same. For some reason, Zenith and Lilia acted out a weirdly theatrical scene as the carriage set off down the road. I suppose they weren't really worried about Rudius. That kid had a solid head on his shoulders after all. What up, Super Cat Meow? How you doing? Guys, show some love. Give a shout out to Super Cat Meow. In any case, those 2 do get along these days. Wish they'd been that friendly with Daddy too, or at least stop ganging up on me. Still, I guess Rudius won't be around to watch the little ones grow up, huh? I knew he'd been planning to become the best big brother ever, but things weren't going out according to that way. Tough luck, kid. Daddy's gonna get all his little daughter's love. Wait a second, though. Rudius was about to start a special accelerated training under a Sword King. 5 years from now, he could be 12, much bigger and stronger than he was now. If we had another anything go scrap when he came back, was I even going to stand a chance? Mods, can you give Super Cat Meow a shout out? Yeah, we're reading a light novel right now. A chapter from a light novel. Oh man, my paternal dignity was on the line. Zenith, dear, Lilia, now that Rudy's left us, I think I'll have to start training a bit as well. Zenith glanced at me with a disinterested expression. Lilia leaned over to stage whisper in her ear. Did it really take a near loss to make him realize that the young master might soon surpass him? Honestly, he was always like this. Never put a bit of effort into someone nearly embarrasses him. Apparently, I was always somewhat lacking in my paternal dignity department. Ah well, what's dignity good for anyway? My old man was a walking lump of pride and nobility, and I was never exactly fond of him. I wanted to be friendly, lovable kind of father, not a dignified one. So for now, I'd just keep pretending to be a good-for-nothing guy with a weakness for the ladies until my 3 kids were all grown up at least. At this point, I glanced over at Zenith out of the corner of my eye. Yeah. Damn, that's a nice body. You know, you never know, she already has 2 kids. Maybe we could try for 4 or 5. Paul, that's a Paul moment right there. That's one way to earn myself an extension, I guess. Well, there was enough time to think about that later. Thoughts ran through my mind as Rudius's carriage humbled down the road. Rudius, believe me, this isn't how I wanted to do this either. I don't think you would have agreed to my plan, and I'm not sure I could have convinced you in an argument. Still, as your father, I couldn't just do nothing. I'm basically passing you off to someone else for now, but I think that's how it has to be. I know I didn't give you any choice, but I'm sure a clever kid like you will understand. The experiences you're going to have out there wouldn't have been possible in this village. Even if you don't understand my reasons, dealing with challenges in front of you will make you stronger in the end. So resent me all you like. Resent me and resent yourself for letting me do this. I grew under my old man's thumb myself, you know, ended up running away rather than even ever facing up to him. I do regret that to some degree, and I wish I'd done things differently. I don't want to feel that way, of course, but you know, running away like that made me stronger. And I'm not sure if I'm stronger than my dad was, but I found women I love, protected the things I care about, and grew tough enough to put the screws on my own kid. You want to fight back? Fine by me. Have at it. Come back stronger, kid. Strong enough to stand up to your tyrant of a dad. Oof. Okay, hold on. It's interesting, right? Because the first slap, he was talking about generational trauma. When the first slap happens, he goes over like just the instincts of like what generational trauma is. And here's the thing, there's a difference between tough love, yeah, and projecting your generational trauma and then trying to disguise it with the projection of yourself, right? There's quite a difference in that, right? So generational traumas, and I'll reiterate this again, right, is, you know, oftentimes our parents go through some sort of issues, right? Grandparents, so on and so forth. We all encountered, like, generationally speaking, trauma at some point in time. And there are people out there who are like, I will never grow up to be like my parents. If you don't take the time to actively think and grow and try and like process what that's like, you're bound to at some point in time reflect that onto your kids, right? Whether it's through like the physicality, through the issues of like not having, for example, some parents are non-confrontational, or they're very confrontational, right? And that like they blow up at the littlest things. And there's some kids that grow up in households like that, and they're like, I'll never grow up to be like my parents. They never put any work on situations like that. When they grow up and have kids, the cycle continues, because that's the environment that they're used to doing. You know, he's assuming what worked for him and what he thought about would be the same for Rudy, even when the circumstances are different. Yeah. And here's the thing, if we're already going through in terms of attachment issues, right? Attachment issues and displacement trauma, right? Because we sort of know what's to come. This is a big moment in time. And I think if like, as a psychologist looking in, already knowing sort of what happens in the anime, this is a moment in time that I can say was like one of the big, like, it's a traumatic moment. It is a traumatic moment for a kid. Like, granted, Rudy would accept this, move on with it, but with someone with like any form of anxious attachment, who has PTSD, as we've talked about, Rudy would probably fall under a PTSD-C diagnosis, for post-traumatic stress disorder diagnosis. You know, with complex of anxiety and messed up attachments, and, you know, social skills not fully being developed in that aspect. We can go ahead and look at this and say, hey, if we were to take you as a kid and send you off, if your parents did, and I'm not even talking about Rudy, I'm talking about you as an individual, you as the person that you are today, when you were a kid, if your parents were to do that to you, do you feel like that would have an impact on your life? Do you feel like you might harbor some sort of resentment, right? Or some instances where you're like, that could have been handled differently? You know? For me, here's the thing, relationship dissolution, breakups, right? Rupture and repair processes inside of relationships. I'm assuming Paul did this because the relationship between Sylphie and Rudy was probably growing too dependent on one another, right? But by doing this without a proper explanation, he just made a pedestal of Rudy from Sylphie's perspective. Rudy's going to be all the way fucking up here. He's now in God tier territory. I get the thinking or the reasoning, right, behind, oh, we have to separate them because, well, you know, they're probably going to be too codependent and whatnot. But yet going through and separating like them like this without the explanation as to why will only lead to like, but Rudy is wonderful. Rudy, oh man, he could do, like, you know, he doesn't need to chant to do anything, and, you know, so on and so forth. And like, all of a sudden Rudy has this, like, through Sylphie's perspective, would have this like pedestal, you know, would have this like amalgamation of like everything. So now, and here's where it's going to get even more fucked up. And this is sort of what I'm thinking about the characters as I go through, right? Sylphie attacks Paul in as we were reading this, right? Sylphie, like, going quickly back. Where is it at? Here it is. Seeing her playmate bound hand and foot, the girl immediately fired off an intermediate tear. Offenses fell at me without so much of an incantation. That's an immediate attack, dude. She warded it off easily, but that's the thing. What was going on with her? She was being bullied. She has some attachment issues, right? She was growing attached to Rudy, right? There's clearly some attachment, some trauma bonding, if you even want to call it that way, because of being bullied, because of someone actually being respecting you and teaching you stuff. You start bonding, and you start bonding because he saved you. So there's a little bit of a savior complex happening inside of that. The pedestal's already starting to grow. What happens if they're adults and they meet up again? Let's say I put Zictor as Rudy, right? Zictor, you're gonna be Rudy for this example, mate, and I'm gonna go ahead and be Sylphie. We meet in the future, you know, we've been separated, I've been bullied for a long time, and Zictor taught me what I know, and I've been like growing and all of these things, and now Zictor is a teenager or adult, right? And so am I, and we cross paths again, right? But Zictor, the Zictor that I knew that was in this pedestal, you know, I've been surviving on my own until now for some way, shape, or form, but I meet up with Zictor again. Guess what? As a psychologist, I've seen stuff like this happen over and over again. Sure, the pedestal might be destroyed, but you want to know what I'm going to do? As an individual, it might not even be because I would fall for someone like Zictor and who he is now as a teenager or adult or whatever. It's because I'm in love, right, with the Zictor that I knew. I would probably start building him up again. I would probably, and it's probably not even because like think about it this way. In any other situation, would you do this for a stranger? No. So then you probably do this for someone that you bonded over with. Some sort of trauma. Now because you're back, you're a safe space. You're mine. But I can fix you, you know? I'll ask around if you're having any issues, you know, if you have issues like you know, in bed, or if you have issues in like, you know, in terms of like you get too nervous talking with people or whatever, I'll do this for you. I'll give you a big hug, you know. I'll give you the special juice, you know. I'll like caress you softly, like I'll do whatever needs to do in order to help you. But I want you to see me for me, you know. I want to build you up again, back to the Zictor that once was. You know, is it a bad thing? Yes and no. Is it a bad thing to build someone up? Absolutely not, right? Looking back though and seeing that it's a history built, or like this is being built because of a pedestal work, if I were to do this, then it's all of a sudden I have to start wondering, right? And this is sort of where my wonder starts coming in. If Zictor already has an attachment trauma, and I've come in and I'm starting to build Zictor up, what is going to stop Zictor, right, from, let's say that he encounters Masha Tank's holy panties, right, and Masha Tank comes back into the realm, and Masha Tank and Zictor has this pedestal of Masha Tank up here, but I've done everything to build Zictor up. What's going to stop Zictor from fooling around at Masha Tank and continuing the cycle of, you know, maybe even hurt and rupture and repair processes? And Masha Tank's like, oh, okay, I guess, you know, well, I'm seeing Zictor at this like good level already. Zictor's here now. Zictor has Masha Tank and I trying to come into agreements with one another, so what it means to like be here, or who has what or whatever. And now Zictor's over here like struggling, you know, he's up here like riding high now that he's been built up, right? And boom, Kaufman comes into the picture, and Kaufman gave Zictor a lot of trauma, and it's one of the few individuals that Zictor really cared about. Now there's an interpersonal triad of like trauma bonding that's happening inside of a situation like this. And you can do this for any situation. This is why you got people who go back to their exes, right? Who go back into like friends, like relationships that never were meant to happen because of the pedestal work that happened. Right, because sometimes we bond through some of the trauma and experiences that have happened, and I hate, it sucks to say it this way, but sometimes trauma can hold such a deep root position in our mind that we prioritize that over a lot of other things out there. The hard part with paradoxis distortion is, do you love me or the idea of me? And that's exactly it, Masha Tank. Going back to the ex is like cheating on yourself. It kind of is, if you're going to be honest, especially with the standards and expectations that you place. Is there a possibility that they think that the pedestal... So it takes a lot of work, Grim. It takes a lot of work and a lot of self-realization to bring that pedestal down. You know, for example, as kids, or like, you know, if there was a person that you admire, at what point, like, that you really, really admired and you really, really cared about, was there a point where it came down where you're like, oh, why, that person's a human as well, that person makes mistakes and stuff like that? It's a tweet? Wait, what does it say? It's merch. Nothing big. For me, how do I handle a situation like this, right? And it's interesting that like he is really proud for, like, he has a lot of pride for his son. And for this time period, I totally understand the actions, actually, that he would go through something like this, get him to work, get him out there, explore the world. He might find others, because what happens after a breakup? Let's be realistic. This is a forced breakup, yeah? But let's be realistic. What happens after a breakup? What is the most common advice that is always thrown at your face? Go out there and meet people. When are you going to start dating again? The world's a big place. There's many fish in the sea, you know? You get this advice thrown at you constantly whenever it's like a massive separation, a massive things like that. I thought they said there are no rebounds. Well, there are rebounds. Rebounds are, yeah. Traveling after a breakup is magical. After a breakup, take a break from dating. Yeah. But then what happens if you haven't healed? And if this is showing you that, like, hey, you know what? If you're getting broken up with, people leave. Either people you're being forced to leave or people leave from your life. This is a forced breakup in a way. And by this, I don't mean like, oh, they were together, whatever. I'm talking about like, you know, relationship dissolution. Rudy is being sent away to go explore and see the world. What happens with Eris? She disappears. She goes and explores the world. One of my most memorable trips took place after my divorce in Mongolia. Yeah. And you learn and you grow and you do a lot of things from that. Don't get me wrong, traveling is wonderful, right? But if you don't have the ability to come in and like fully get, and this doesn't even have to be in a like romantic relationship, in a standard relationship, if you don't like, you know, with friends and whatnot, if you're not able to like understand or be introspective about why things are happening, it can be cause for concern for how future relationships are going to develop. Because all of a sudden, let's say that we're in a healthier environment, right? One where you now have control over your actions. Guess what? Zictor might be picking up strays in the scenario that I gave up earlier. Zictor might be picking up Bonfire and being like, hey, yo, Bonfire, restarting up a manga business, and you're gonna grab some like random people, you know, random people out there, demi-humans, everyone included, and start showing them how to do manga. But you guys are my friends now, okay? Oh wow, okay, these two cute individuals, hey, you're part of my crew now. Yeah, you're part of me. Hey, you know, Zictor might start going everything, because all of a sudden that like separation trauma, that like, you know, the way that trauma is formed, Zictor is now going to go and try and like anxiously start attaching himself to everyone, knowingly or unknowingly. He might start already making imprints in others, because having others around you is a way to grow, and it's a way to heal. I'll fucking start the manga business, bro. Let's do it. But for me, this is awesome, dude. This is impressive, because it's showing at least Paul's perspective in terms of how he views Rudy, and that he's actually genuinely proud of him, and that it wasn't really with malicious intent, rather with like the intent of going ahead and like and separating them just because of whatever conversation he must have had, which I'm sure we'll get into at a later point. But it's also a big aspect of this in of itself, right? A lot of my friends are like that, relationships addict. Yeah, and you know, it happens. But at the same time, he might be misguided. Here's the thing: there is no book for parenting. Trauma shape their futures like this, and it does, quarterism. That's the thing. Like, at least today, now, like nowadays, we have the ability to go ahead and understand sort of like the impacts that trauma and whatnot can have on kids. Back in the day, they didn't have shit. Let's be realistic. You know, go 400, 500 years back. They really did not have, like, being a parent. It's like, oh, you have a kid, you're a parent, good luck. There wasn't really anything like trying to truly understand your kid, or it was mostly for workforce like methods, you know. Oof. But having your heart broken by your parents, or a forceful separation, that's a lot, dude. That's a lot. My big aspect in all of this, though, right, is because this is a forced separation. If Sylphie and Rudy at some point in the future, I don't fucking know, guys, were to get together, would Sylphie be okay with new people coming into the relationship? Say that Roxy or Eris or Ghislaine or, you know, Elena Liz, you know, the fucking elf, the sexy elf, were to come in for whatever reason and try and form a relationship with Rudy. Would she be okay with that? I'm just throwing random names out there. Or would it just be a forced acceptance of a relationship if Rudy were to do it? So say that for whatever reason, one of them, like Rudy, were to get a Paul instinct and fuck around with someone. Is it learned helplessness at that point if Sylphie were to just accept it? Is it, and by that I don't mean like, oh, she's helpless. No, I mean like the attachment trauma is there already. Right. So I'm sort of like wondering situations like this, because it's big separation anxiety and stuff like this is often why you get people who are very, very controlling in their relationships. Very, very like, you're not gonna leave me, are you? Like, you're not, like, you know. Oh, bro. With how many people have been in that elf? I don't know, Zictor. I don't know, brother. She might blow my mind in bed, but I don't know about, like, I feel like if she still has Rudy on that pedestal, she'll just let him do what he wants. Yeah, I think there might be some discussions and stuff, but oof. You know, and that's sort of what I'm going at. It's like, as adults, how would a relationship like this flourish? She's the queen. She's a queen for many people. You know, I bet you they pray to her every night for some of the experiences. I thought Roxy was the queen, dude. For me, Roxy, yeah, Roxy could rock my world. That's the best way I can put it. Ghislaine could rock my world. Roxy is God. What would your advice for Paul be in this situation? So my advice, if I was in here as a psychologist, right? Say that I was like the wizard of the village, right? And that people came to me for advice like this. I would tell them to have a conversation with both of them before sending them off. You can still make the decision like, hey, we're gonna send you off, but give the reasoning behind it, right? And also give opportunity for Sylphie and Rudy to be in communication. You want to make sure that this is a true relationship, that this relationship is being formed outside of the test of like, whatever. Be like, okay, hey, look, this is sort of what's happening. We've had a conversation with both, like the families there, Rudy, dude, we feel like this relationship's getting too dependent on one another. We want to send you off for you to be able to grow and become a tutor and all of these wonderful things. But we don't want to necessarily have to like force separate you guys and cause a trauma. You guys can still be in communication and both of you grow and expand your skills. And if this is truly what it's meant to be in love and whatnot, then it'll happen. Therapist in another world, yeah. and honestly, this is probably like, it'd probably be the healthiest option, so that way both kids can understand the reasoning behind it and not just feel like they've been separated by force with no reasoning behind it, or being explained after being separated. The wizard and the wizard. Can we send you over to Mushoku Tensei world to counsel Rudy? Oh, oh. Should their communication be limited or should they send each other constant letters? So here's the thing. Propinquity will state, right? Because propinquity, like, this is why, okay, I hate to be straight up about it. This is why a lot of long distance relationships don't work. You want me to be straight up with you? That propinquity level is not high. Yes, you can still write, messages and text and FaceTime, but because you're not there with that person, the level of propinquity and attachment starts dropping, right? Especially if you're not able to keep it fresh and be able to see each other from time to time, it starts dropping. And long distance relationships are really, really, really hard to keep up because of propinquity levels. Propinquity is the reason why, you might say that you're in a relationship, right? And you start going to, say, the anime club, and you start developing feelings for someone there in the anime club, Propinquity is the reason why we develop feelings and why we start growing attached to individuals. It's a bonding moment, essentially, right? But that's the main reason what I'm getting at is like Paul almost got it right but screwed up because he can't talk to yeah. So my only thing that I would have said is like, hey, Paul and Sophie's parents should have had this conversation with them before separating them. And honestly, this might have helped a little bit with future orientations for Rudy himself in terms of like, not all relationships are going to end in this way. Communication needs to be crystal clear, or doubts and insecurities can compound through the distance. Yeah, but I would also expand on them being able to go and send letters to one another, because as a matter of fact, I think that this would have been a good way for them to be able to see, can this kid relationship last the test of time? And if so, how would this work for both of them, right? Would Rudy come back and try and see Sophie from time to time, or would Sophie, like, once in a blue moon, right, if Rudy saved up enough money, ask for Sophie to go over with him? This would have been a beautiful thing to see in the anime, but it was great what we got regardless, because it's set up sort of Eris, like, the whole complication with Eris. During the whole first season, he only communicated with Roxy. True. Also seeing Rudy grow might cause Sophie to start changing and grow as well. Absolutely, absolutely. But that's the number one thing there. Because here's the thing is, if you just stop cold communication, what are you leaving, Grim? You're leaving the aspect of the relationship where it ended, right? And then this relationship ended with Rudy being seen as this prodigy, godlike figure for Sophie. As opposed to, hey, I'm meeting this girl. Hey, I'm doing this thing. And all of a sudden, guess what? Rudy is not just this all-time being. He has issues. Rudy is going through issues. Oh, wait, like, Rudy has to deal with this annoying girl. Oh, all of a sudden, Sophie might start feeling jealous. It might start growing as an individual because of these feelings that she's getting as well. This is awesome. This is great context to go ahead and come in. What would you guys do differently? And that's my question being thrown at you guys. What would you guys do differently in a scenario like this? For example, if you were Paul, right? Or if you could give counsel to Paul and to the other one. Does age matter in this case for a long-distance relationship? It depends, right? Because it's like, if you're under 30, right? And I think this is one of the big things. It's a lot harder to maintain long-distance relationships. And it also depends on what you're looking for. The older you get, the more that you want to settle down. That's the whole aspect of things, right? And the more that you're willing to fight and keep a relationship going. Honestly, I was impressed at Paul's foresight. His reasoning on separating them is very sound. Yeah, the reasons. Well, there's levels to it, right? But his execution wasn't necessarily like, of course, like the best in modern terms. And back in the day's terms, sure. I see it. Back in the day, you know, if we're looking at their time period, their cultural like time period and stuff. Let's be honest, they didn't have psychologists or therapists or anything like that, right? And a lot of their reasoning was actually just acting on generational trauma, right? And their ways of dealing with things. They dealt with it this way, so therefore my kids must deal with it this way. So I can totally see why he took those actions, you know. Do you think Rudy has put Roxy on a pedestal? Yeah, he has. I think Rudy has put Roxy on... Here's where I'm scared. Because Rudy has put Roxy on a sexual pedestal, on a pedestal for being his teacher, on like, you know, a cute pedestal, and by sexual pedestal, I mean like the almighty penis of Roxy, right? What were to happen? Oh God, wait, hold on. I just got a weird trauma thing. What were to happen if Roxy, for whatever reason, right, were to like use sexuality as a weapon against Rudy? By this, I don't mean like, oh, she's the enemy. But like, let's say that Roxy, for whatever reason, is being looked down upon or whatever. And Roxy uses the sexuality that she knows Rudy is very much interested in against him. You'll take responsibility, right, Bonfire? You'll take responsibility, right, Bonfire? Right, Victor? You'll take responsibility? Like, you know... I will. Because think about it this way. If there's this pedestal-like thing already up high, right? And you take an action like this, where there's already a sexual pedestal or sexual ramification in it, where I'm seeing you as more than, you know, and for some reason, something were to happen, or you use that knowingly or unknowingly against me, and we were to like hook up or something were to happen, yeah, oof is all I can say, because it can form some interesting attachments. My first instinct would be to say Rudy would pick up on that, but when it comes to romance, he is horribly naive. Yeah, would Roxy really do that? She's usually the calculated, methodical type. Don't think she'll need to take advantage of Rudy. Let me go on and throw it this way. Notice me, senpai. Notice me, senpai. You're Roxy, right? Hey, notice me, dude. I'm just gonna be straight up with you. I'm gonna be a horny, you know, one of your horny best friends. Dude, you're like 400 years old. You don't have a partner. I've never seen you with a partner. Notice me. There's a lot of horrible, pervy nobles out there that at some point in time are going to try and force you to marry them, you know? They're going to try and... You're a water god saint. Who doesn't want that in their bloodline? Dude, I know that Victor over there... Dude, think about it. He's a nice dude. Incredible dude. You know, do you really want him getting away? It's up to you. You have to take this action, notice me. You can do this, notice me. It's up to you. Take that first step. You know that Zictor's a nice guy. Zictor would love you for anything. Zictor praises you. And think about it this way. You know, you saw him grow up. You know that he will treat you right and that he cares about you. Roxy wasn't very calculated when she broke into the inn after walking in on Lilith. Yeah. I think, but that's sort of what I'm getting at. You can say that like a tinfoil hat moment or whatever, dude. Like, could Roxy use sexuality as an element against Rudy? I think so. I think so. Especially in a world like this, I think so. But demon racism, though she's a demon, Rudy doesn't see her that way, right? Right? If she would, it would be effective, not gonna lie. Yeah. Yeah. And that's exactly what I'm thinking. Like, Rudy doesn't care. Dude, okay, he was in Roxy's parents' house and calling them like, oh yeah, thanks father, you know, thanks mother. Would you say Rudy has a parataxic distortion of Roxy? Absolutely. And that's exactly why I'm saying, like, there's a strong pedestal, there's a sexual pedestal, there's a intelligence pedestal, an emotional pedestal. Everything builds up for Roxy. So in any situation, could it be used in an environment like this? About her height and her chest size, Rudy sees them as perfect though. Yep. So why am I bringing this up? Because if we use the parallel for Sylphie to Rudy and Rudy to Roxy, we can see that like stuff can be used in a way, you know, like stuff can be used in a very, very dark way. True. Where a woman sees a good man ready for the taking but is in danger of escaping their grasp might lure them in sexual advances. Yeah, and even guys, if we're gonna be realistic, some guys would do pretty much anything like that as well. Is someone clipping all of this? Wait, what? But that's the overall aspect that I'm getting at. Is like this chapter for me is bringing up a lot of questions in terms of like power dynamics in this, and then like the relationship dynamics for all of this, you know. Sorry if this is too tinfoil head moments. It's just sometimes I'm like reading a chapter, it makes me think like far ahead. Like, for example, if I were to put scenarios like this, like how will Rudy grow in an environment like this? Because that's what a psychologist does, right? If I'm talking to you, right, and you're telling me your story, I'm constantly thinking. I'm doing Bronfenbrenner's ecological theory. So for example, for those of you guys that are just watching this randomly, you know, I'm thinking about this at all times in our session, right? And I'm using the chrono system of time to see how that would affect everything, right? So if, for example, you keep bringing up a person that's really, really important in your life and it's making an impact in waves, I'm like, okay, say 10 years from now, that person is no longer in your life. How do you cope with that? And I'm thinking about this going in and out at all times. That's what a good psychologist should be doing, as well as doing this, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and all of the other ones that we bring up constantly. You know, just going back and forth. And so this is what I do. I take all these characters that we talk about, that we're reading about, and I'm processing them in different time periods like that. I feel like Rudy and Roxy possess the questions of what if your waifu was real? At least we agree that Roxy is God. I mean, Eris already did that with Rudy, and so she regretted it. Yeah, so that's exactly why I'm like, for me, this is a big processing moment, and it's a big moment of like, I wonder where they're going to take the story, because they can take the story 101 directions. In a psychologically accurate prediction, it would be something as using the power dynamics or the parataxic distortions at play and expanding on it. Like we just referenced. That's like a little bit of a scenario. That's one possibility to take things in. You can also take them in a way where it just develops more hurt and trauma and pain and allows Rudy to come back from that. Anyway, I think that pretty much covers it. I think this is awesome, just seeing the fact that Zenith and Lily are acting it out, dude. They're doing all of these things. I just think that this is genuinely an awesome little introspective moment in here. I feel like Roxy was written for me, not finding a real person, but not too much like me. I think it's a long novel, so hopefully you take us over. All I can say is it's going to be good. Yeah, it's going to be good. YouTube, what do you guys think? Did you guys like the little chapter analysis talk on this one? What do you guys think about the propinquity and parataxic distortions that are being shown? And is there something in this chapter that might maybe I overlooked or something that you guys think, oh, dude, there's this very, very important line that you should go back and read? Because yeah, if it's there, I'll read it in the comments, dude. I think that's awesome. With that being said, dude, I can't appreciate like all the support and everything you guys do for us. I appreciate y'all so much, dude. We tend to do this every Friday and Sunday. Come join us. Best way for me to say it. Come join us as we'll be going through and we'll be reading, maybe not just Mushoku Tensei, but other ones as well. I still haven't prepared the dinner scene. So slow down on Paul, bruh. Okay, I got you, Zictor. And yes, guys, if you guys are on Reddit or anything like that, go join Six Faced World, dude. Incredible individuals. Come join us on Discord. 101 thing. Hit that like button, subscribe. I don't know what else to say other than I appreciate y'all. Practice some self-care, and I'll see you guys later.